Welcome back to the RC Pilot's log and part 2 of my ATR-72 600 build using plans from Julius Padana, to which there is a link in the video description. In this episode I'm building the tail section and tail feathers. I'm using 3mm depron instead of the 5mm called for in the plans because it's cheaper and lighter. I haven't been able to source reasonable priced white depron, but a box of 40 sheets of this grey 3mm works out at £2 2p per sheet, significantly cheaper than buying half sheets from hobby shops. The paper plans for the tail section are marked and cut out before being formed using a hairdryer and a large card tube. Masking tape is used to hold the sections round while they cool. Next up, the largest rear fuse piece is hot glued onto the fuselage. I'm not enjoying hot glue. It's fine for a flight test build, but seems cumbersome and messy for depron. I found the plans to be oversized and required some trimming. I'm making the tail formers from 2 layers of 3mm foam rather than 3mm ply that I used on the rest, because I want to keep the tail weight down. I was surprised how rigid the 2 layers were and will be sure to use this in my next project. Working through the remaining tail sections, each are formed and glued into place and trimmed where required.
Any ideas?
The completed fuselage is an impressive size, but I can't help feeling disappointed with my build skills. It's messy and inconsistent. Still, I can't be too hard on myself as it's my first attempt. Next, the plans for the tail feathers are cut out. They call for 3mm ply for a few formers and structural pieces, so they are glued on and cut out on the bandsaw. Part S2 should slide over S1 to form the structure of the vertical stabiliser. I couldn't see a way to cut the rectangular slot in S2, so chose to cut it in half and remove the material on the bandsaw before gluing the halves back together. With S2 positioned on its mark and the paper plans overlaid, things were not aligning. The mark on S1 seemed too low and at an incorrect angle. Fortunately, S3 is a brace and can be used to make the correct angle, while the stabiliser skin can be used to set the correct height. stab is coming together and a 9-gram digital Metal Gear servo is installed for the rudder. Plans call for a foam trailing edge to the stab, but I chose to make the ply one for some additional durability. The leading edge is built up from 5 layers of 3mm foam and then sanded into shape. I went through a few versions of the rudder and ended up not recording the process. I did take a few photos that show the construction. The horizontal stabiliser and elevator uses a sandwich of 3 layers of 3mm foam and a 3mm ply spar. Once glued together, the leading edge was rounded. With the centre line marked, it aligns nicely on top of the rudder and is glued in place. On the full-size ATR-72, the top of the vertical stabiliser is connected to the rudder and moves as one piece, but for simplicity the plans have it fixed. It's built up from layers of foam and shaped to fit. Once glued in place, the tail feathers are almost complete. Glued onto the fuselage, they look pretty good, but I still can't shake the disappointed feeling of it all looking rather rough. Also, 3mm foam is obviously not as rigid as 5mm, and the tail seems rather flimsy. Mark II then is already on the cards. Thanks for watching and happy flying.